Hi, it's Friday, it's 3 o'clock, and it's Together Unlocked. I'm Ju Gosling, artist and artistic director of Together 2012. We're bringing you this live stream today as part of a comprehensive join in from home programme of accessible arts activities. With me in my studio in Canning Town is
Julie Newman. I'm the chair of Together 2012.
and an artist in her own right. And joining us on the virtual sofa from the West Midlands are
Hi, I'm Robin Surgeonator, and I am the business director of Together 2012, co host of Together Unlocked, and again, an artist in my own right under the name of Angry Fish.
Hi, I'm Josh Surgeonator. I'm one of the hosts of Together Unlocked, and I am a PhD research student.
brilliant. So it's Friday, it's our dressing up to go out to stay in day. We are all shielding, so we're expecting to be here with you for quite some time to come. But that's no reason not to dress up to go out, even if you're staying in. So I'm going to combine that with a bit of audio description for people who aren't able to see us. I'm in my late 50s. I've got short, tenured red hair. It's slightly shorter than it was on Wednesday because I took my assistant dog's clippers to the back this morning because I find the neck very itchy. But Julie doesn't want me to do the same to her. I've got black framed plastic glasses. I've got my hands in splints, and I am wearing a Doctor Who Cyberman t shirt. And it reminded me actually, my very first piece of art that was deemed to be disability art was back in 97, and it was a website called My Not So Secret Life as a Cyborg, where I was documenting and taking selfies of me wearing a back brace that had been very highly decorated and was being worn visibly instead of hidden under clothing, and yeah, writing about my cyborg life. But I was also intrigued to notice that although it won't affect us, so called non essential shops, and we can all debate whether some of the things that have already been open were essential, non essential shops are open from Monday. And Newham, where we are based, has the Doctor Who shop. So, although they have a wonderful online selection, I think there's probably quite a few people desperate to get down to the Barking Road to have a look at their Doctor Who museum and all things Doctor Who. Not many people know that Newham is the home of Doctor Who, but in fact, with a PhD, I am Dr. Ju, and if I travel, I'm often known as Doctor Who. So I thought, yes, Cyborgs Friday, Doctor Who shop opening, give it a plug. Good for local business, good for Doctor Who fans. Julie, what are you dressed up to go out to stay in?
Um, I'm wearing my delightful folk T-shirt with the hairs dancing in a Celtic knot. I have a sort of little slouchy hat on that I can pull down over my ears because I'm going on the Golden Road at the top of the Preselles. It runs for 7 miles on the crest of the Preseli Hills in Pembrokeshire, in mid Wales. Um, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. Actually, you can see if you on a clear day, you can see across to Ireland. You can see South Wales. You can see North Wales, and the wonderful Irish Sea. Uh, it's about 5,000 years old, they reckon, and there's some archaeological dispute, as there usually is about these things, as to whether it was supposed to be the route for bringing gold down to the southwest from the mines slightly north of the hills themselves, or whether it was in fact uh, a place, well, a holy place actually. The Mabinogion uh, tells of King Arthur and his knights fighting an enormous boar on the plains there. There's a couple of cairns, very old cairns, Bronze Age cairns. There's a couple of quarries. And the area itself is littered with the sort of stones that you find in Stonehenge. Um, Interestingly, the latest decision about archaeological decision about why those stones were chosen was because if you take a metal hammer and strike the stones as you go along, one in five actually is melodic, and it rings out with a particular tone. And they were wondering whether the stones that were taken to Stonehenge, the blue stones, were actually chosen because of the sounds that they made. So I'm going to have a lovely time. I'm going to look for the kite, the red kite, because there's always a red kite up there. And I'm going to, why I've chosen this weekend is because I want to get up there before the skylarks go. The skylarks are usually sort of singing their little hearts out until the beginning of July up on the top of the Preseli Hills there.
And for those of you who've recently joined us, and welcome to all our viewers, we're so pleased to have you with us, whether you're watching live or later on the recording. We have a page as a sort of sub menu of the Together 2012 TV page, and that has all of the links that we mentioned today. So you'll be putting in some links so that other people can also virtually visit the Golden Road, won't you? And I will put in a link to the Who shop for those of you who would rather sit there and play Doctor Who.
My link will be from the Visit Pembrokeshire page, and it's absolutely full of beautiful, beautiful, breathtaking pictures. As you can imagine, the photographs of that area are stunning because it just lends itself to photography.
Yes, and indeed, there's a lot more we could say about that. But before we do, let's go back to the West Midlands. Well, what are you dressed up to go out to stay in as?
Well, I'm looking much less smart than Robin is next to me. You'll get his description in a moment. I am wearing a grey t-shirt that has a green outline of a mountain range running down across the middle, and it says Outlook Expeditions on it, and then underneath it says Same World, Different Outlook, and it was a t-shirt that I was given as part of the kind of kit um, that we all received when I went on an expedition kind of across the Andes, kind of coast to coast of South America, starting in Peru and then kind of through and finishing off in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So yeah, I'm just kind of wore that and hoping to go back to exploring kind of parts of the world and rainforests and mountain ranges and things. So I thought I'd put on my expedition crew t-shirt.
I'd love to hear a bit more about that, but also for people who've just joined us, a bit of audio description about what the rest of you looks like.
Yes, I have a mop of blonde hair, and kind of unshaven a little bit that I need to kind of trim up. And yeah, I'm kind of quite skinny.
Okay, fair enough. And well, I am bucking the trend, and I've gone posh tonight. I am off to see. We've talked a lot about the groups that we support and believe in, and I'm off to see an opera by Scott Joplin. Scott Joplin. Many of you will know Scott Joplin as a ragtime pianist, but he actually had much higher um, aspirations, and he wrote a number of operas. The most famous of which is called Treemonisha, which is about the journey of a West Indian young woman. And at the time, when he kind of wrote it in the early 1900s, kind of it didn't get the backing that it deserved purely because of its subject matter. And as a black musician, I mean, we're aware that a lot of black musicians didn't start to get recognition until much later. Um, and so the kind of things, being able to raise money to get an orchestra or run and that kind of stuff simply didn't happen. Now I got this um, very, very fortuitously because I watched Emily's assembly at school this morning. Um, I'll be honest about that. And I just thought that is such an absolutely great story because everyone thinks of him as some bloke that played the piano brilliantly, but actually there's so much more to him. So yeah, Treemonisha, and it has now been done in various places, including the Grand Ole Opry, in the deep south of America, where he wouldn't even have been allowed to play the piano probably at some point. So that's me. I am going to the opera. Oh, and also, whilst I'm going to the opera, I'm going to be wearing my very clean, silky white grey hair of today, my almost no rimmed glasses, and I am kind of shaven ish.
Wonderful. Thank you in the West Midlands. So, we've been talking about various things this week: Pride Month, Newham Heritage Month, but it's also Carers Week. And I thought it was important that we not just touched on that, but all of us presenting the show today are disabled people. We all use care, but we also provide care. And I think that's one of the things that's so often forgotten, that a very, very large proportion, probably the majority, of carers are also disabled people themselves. And we see all these systems set up, so that there's a sort of there's a person who receives care in one corner and there's a person giving care in the other corner. And I haven't really seen Carers Week reflect that in the same way. Always have real problems with this term child carer, because if care is needed by an adult, it's the duty of the state to provide it. I mean, legally, it's the duty of the state to provide it. So it's difficult to see how a young person who's not old enough to work can be carrying out recognised professional labour on an unpaid basis, and we fundraise so that they can go to a club after school once a week. But we don't seem to be getting out there saying, why haven't their parents got the support they're entitled to? And I think it's also very misleading, because those parents are still making all the key decisions for their children and looking after ultimately their well-being, whether their child helps them get up in the morning or does the washing up or picks the shopping up or does the ironing. If that parent wasn't in charge, the child would be removed. That's just the law. But it makes disabled parents appear as if they're not proper parents if a child is having to do some of the caring tasks. So I'm just going to toss all that out there, speaking as a disabled person and co-carer, and see what the rest of you have got to say. If you're watching us on YouTube, and you can do that by clicking on the live stream on the website, you can join in by live chat. We would love to hear what you think. Robin?
Well, yeah. So I mean, from here, I think that the whole it's such a massive topic. I mean, just who classes as a carer, um, what status they have as a carer. If you're a partner carer, that there are so many issues about the blurring of the relationships that brings, and then undermines your human rights, let alone, kind of, British kind of social law, but rights to private lives, rights to personal relationships and stuff like that get undermined by um, partner caring, and I think the child caring issue is really, really, really huge. I mean, like yourselves, I've done bits of work with young carers, um, and some of them are really scarred because they're having to deal with things that a child shouldn't have to deal with to help parents in compromised situations. Um, and it as a parent, it's also a really kind of a minefield place to be, because you have to present yourself at all times as completely capable, because you don't want someone to come along and say, well, you're not able to look after your children. The fact that you're, and then you get so many sort of questions around, um, well, yes, you do need help with doing stuff. That doesn't make you a bad parent, because you're there, you love, you help your child in school, you do what you can to ensure that they have active lives. And then you can still be, vilified and admonished for doing your best. Whereas if you're really rich and don't have a disability, you can simply pay someone else to look after your kids and you're doing a great job. So it is a completely massive area.
It is, and I think we've deliberately made time to talk about it. I just want to throw one other thing in the mix. Some people who know my work may remember that I developed what's known as the scientific model of disability, but we're going to park that for a minute. I also worked on what I call the economic model of disability. And it's exactly that. If you're a rich person, you can have a driver, you can have a nanny, you can have a secretary, you can have a housekeeper, you can have a cleaner. Nobody asks why. Nobody says, but you're not looking after your own children. In fact, all of those things are seen as status. If you're a member of the royal family, and quite a young member of the royal family, somebody's going to come in, they're going to open your curtains, they're going to run your bath, they're going to serve your breakfast, they're going to make your bed, blah, blah, blah. They're going to drive you where you want to go, they're going to cook and serve your meals. None of that's necessary, but it's seen as really aspirational. That's the celebrity lifestyle, so much of this just comes down to who pays. And I know there's a lot of people out there who've had to either cancel their care packages because of lack of PPE and manage on their own, or families who've had to stop work and continue to provide all of the care on an unpaid basis. So I think Carers Week has never been more important, but I also think never been less visible. I've seen almost nothing about it this week. What do you think, Josh?
Honestly, I don't really think I'm kind of qualified enough to talk on it. I don't really have the experience, so I don't want to kind of throw in kind of my 2 cents, which really would be kind of an uneducated opinion on it.
Well, let me chuck in something else, because, like we say, this is a sort of huge pot. Let's put it all in and stir it and see what comes out. I am also a co-chair of Regard, the National LGBTQI plus disabled people's organisation, and on that basis, I represent a lot of disabled people on committees and things around social care. And something that always comes up is this very kind of lazy, well, and deliberate, because it's also done by public authorities and local authorities who should know better, this blurring of the boundaries. A carer is somebody who provides care and support on an unpaid basis. A family member, a friend, another relative, a partner. They are not people who are paid, and you cannot be paid to care. You can only be paid to do certain jobs. And I think one issue that I often find very difficult, and I think carers who are not disabled themselves must find even more difficult, is this kind of, oh, they're a carer, and you think, no, they're not. And one of the problems that I find in the way that support is delivered is because the boundaries are blurred. There's a lot of, quite right, praise and appreciation for carers, and somehow it seems to rub off on PAs and support workers and care assistants. So they almost go round kind of with their halo that is completely undeserved. But they're also expected to do things that they simply can't be expected to do. We have people who's really have problems because their expectations of their PAs is that they are going to take control of all sorts of things that only a family member or a friend or a partner could do for you. I mean, if you use support, I don't know if you use any support when you're at university, but have you ever come across that thing where somebody is just your paid worker, but they're given carer status and asked if they'd like to join in on an equal basis and so on?
I do get assistance at uni, but that is provided through direct payments, so it's a paid kind of assistant role, as well as there being kind of disability support through the university, kind of if needed. But yeah, kind of the assistance that I do have, or did slash do when I'm there, is a kind of formal paid thing that through local authority.
But
I mean, I think the difficult bit would have been if 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 Josh had had to stay in Sheffield at this time, then he would have been in a much more compromised situation, because the support that he gets in Sheffield wouldn't have been provided during lockdown. Whereas having come home, we are accessing some support, and obviously, as exactly as you've described, we are having to make do and do lots of workarounds, and different people doing things they wouldn't normally be doing. And where we have got some minimal PA contact, about stretching the boundaries of what they're doing.
Yeah, and that, I mean, looking at the national picture, that is very, very common. People have moved in with relatives and family and friends, or indeed relatives and families and friends have moved in with them. Disabled people have moved in with each other, but a huge number of care packages have been put on hold or cancelled. And again, a lot of that comes down to PPE. I just wanted to come back to that point again slightly, though, Josh, although not necessarily to ask you to comment, but that's my experience of going out with a paid support worker has often been that they're treated like a carer. So they're greeted first, they're given, if I'm going to a function, they're given a copy of the program, they're treated like a conference delegate, whatever it is, which is the way I would absolutely want my carer to be treated, but not my PA. And it's that kind of, or yes, or people coming in, not lasting very long, but very much kind of coming in with this idea that they're being some kind of saint, because this absolute kind of mix up.
Oh.
And also really sad things like, including courts. I won't go into the situation, but where a court has given the care and control of a vulnerable adult to the paid support worker because they haven't understood the difference between a paid support worker and a carer. So I think it can be really dangerous. Julie, did you want to come in? Anything to do with carers and Carers Week?
I worry about young people and children who have very little support in terms of their own mental health needs. I think it's very difficult for a child who feels anxious about a parent anyway, and if they take on some sort of caretaking responsibility where they feel they have to be responsible for the well-being of their parent, whether that's assumed or whether it's actual, there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of support for youngsters to actually turn around and say, sometimes I hate my mum. She just drives me crackers. She's just taking it a step beyond, and I wanted to back off sometimes. But having that outlet is really important, because if you look at your mother and you can't say, sometimes I really hate you, because you're frightened that she's going to collapse or die, then that's a massive burden for a young person to carry. And the other sort of group of people that I have a particular concern about are older people. And I'm talking about, significantly older people who are ending up looking after a partner or a husband or a wife who over time have needed more and more assistance, more and more care, and haven't got anyone coming into the house, haven't got any access to anyone to just give them a break for an hour so they can go and sit in the park, or sort of go and visit a family member. But they can become very, very isolated, and I've seen it over and over again. And I think it's terribly difficult to get to reach people like that. And the isolation is dreadful, because it's impacting on their mental health and their physical well-being as well.
Yes, sorry, I'm just looking at some live chat from Tracy Surgeonator, who indeed is also our production monitor. And she says the guidelines for parents, they've removed the section for parents to have the right to support to enable them with their role as a parent, and suggested the child has to apply for its own care! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Something else we'll just add in at this point for, and again, I'm sure all the carers out there already know about it. One of the very first things the government did when they brought in the Coronavirus Emergency Act was to suspend huge parts of the Care Act and state that local authorities no longer had necessarily to meet the care needs of clients. So that was a bit of a blow. We asked Newham to confirm that they would still be providing care on the same basis, and I opened a letter this week. So that's been 3 months of quite a lot of concern. But we know that particularly in the northeast, which of course has also been very badly hit by COVID, there have been quite a number of very significant cuts. I think it was Anne Pridmore, who's a very well-known activist, said on social media in March that when she'd pointed out that direct payments employers are exempt from the furlough scheme, which essentially means it's almost impossible for support workers who are being furloughed to either be paid by the government or to access the self employment help or to access any other kind of help. So, they just said to her, well, if you can't manage, we'll put you into a care home. And we all know what's happened to care home residents. And of course, care in the community is absolutely what we need to be looking at in the future. We have to be, if not closing those care homes, the reality is, even with proper PPE, there just isn't the capacity for people to look after that number of people safely. And you've also got, I think it was 8% of the residential care sector disappeared last year alone. That was an 8% shrinking in capacity. It's going to shrink more because lots of them won't be able to make a living. So it's all going to come back on carers, and including co carers. We describe ourselves as co carers, and in practical terms, it just means that there are some tasks that one of us can do that the other can't, and vice versa. And I think a lot of disabled people live like that. And certainly, a year ago, when you had major knee surgery, all of the people that rallied round to provide the support that we desperately needed were other disabled people. I couldn't get, in a crisis, a single support worker from an agency anywhere in London. And my usual PA was on her honeymoon for the first 2 weeks after the operation. And I think that's just a typical experience, isn't it? You put out a call to professionals, and actually, if it's going to be a really difficult job, why would people want to do it? And then it comes back on carers again, whether they're disabled or not. Robin, you look like you've got something you want to say.
I know. I mean, it's quite distressing, really. I mean, you could become very um, bleak and disillusioned thinking about what could actually, how bad it could be. And I was thinking, actually, we kind of we need to be realistic, but somehow at the same time maintain our kind of sense of self and self belief in who we are, and that whatever happens, you'll find a way through. And I know that's almost what they bank on. I mean, there's the stupidity of the "we'll put you in the care home." Then is that care homes cost much more money than care in the community does, um, but it washes the responsibility from the manager away by putting somebody, so they haven't got to worry about whether they're making their budget, spending it appropriately, blah blah blah. All the autonomy that and independence that self-directed care brings is simply just vanished, and the social worker can go, well, I don't have to worry about it now.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, particularly for any non disabled person watching, to point out that we are the kind of people who get put into care homes. Lots of young disabled people end up in care homes after university because it takes years for council accommodation to come through. Lots of older people, lots of middle aged people. We've had this sort of stereotyping of care home residents as well. They're all in their 90s with dementia, but that just absolutely is not the case.
I mean,
And there are many, many people living in the community very successfully who've got higher levels of need rather than care home residents. I think, as you were saying earlier, it puts a lot of strain on relationships, and that's the reality. In the same way that never having enough care and support puts a lot of strain on quality of life, the more it's put on you to meet your own needs and each other's needs, it does put a strain. And you said something at the beginning of Mental Health Awareness Week, Robin, about the most important thing is to be kind to ourselves, because the theme was kindness. And I think that's really where we could leave that for now. Is Yeah, be kind, understand that actually the stresses and strains of the outside world are making us a bit grumpy and just occasionally irritable and difficult to live with. Can't think how, but we just have to accept that actually that's not an innate thing. It's not about us. It's about being, yeah, overtired and stressed and worried and not getting all of the support and the quality of life that you should. But of course, our answer at the moment is to stay home, stay creative, and that is the best way to stay well. The world will be out there again in a year or two when it is safe. There is no need to rush. So I'm just going to play you a short video about some of our Join In From Home program, and I'm going to ask everybody else to mute their microphones. Together 2012 is running a Join In From Home program from our website, together2012.org.uk. Click on the link at the top of the page, Join In From Home, to go straight to the main page where you have a wide range of accessible, inclusive creative activities, mostly using things that you would already have at home. At the top of the page and throughout the pages, you will also see videos in British Sign Language to translate the site for deaf people. These videos can also be useful if you have difficulties reading and you simply want to hear more of the content. The Join In From Home programme is based on the activities that we would usually be running in East London. So, for example, we have an arts club which usually operates on a Tuesday with craft-based activities and on a Friday morning for drawing and painting. Here you can join in with the arts club's Hands project and celebrate your uniqueness and membership of the human race. There are full instructions on the linked page here. But essentially, we invite you to draw around your hand on a piece of card. It could be an old cereal packet. Cut the shape out, turn it over, and decorate it with anything you would like to do. It could be paints, crayons, glitter, collage, beads, leaves, anything you can think of. Photograph your hand or hands and send it to us at tv@together2012.org.uk. We'll add it to our video installation and share it on social media. Our music club usually meets on the first Friday of each month. We have an open mic session and we invite everybody to play along with percussion instruments. So here you can learn how to make your own percussion instruments from recycled materials. And you can also join in a percussion workshop from last summer in terms of Carnival Percussion. So these three instruments are used most often in Carnival. We have a shaker and a go-go and a hand drum. So this is how to make a recycled shaker, a recycled go-go, and a recycled hand drum. You can also, if you're technically minded, make your own tactile sound instrument. This does require a few simple electronics, but is a very interesting and exciting project as part of our Vibrafusion ongoing work. You can also listen with Together. We have Spotify playlists created by Robin Surgeonator, also known as our TV presenter Angry Fish, and we also have two classical music playlists from Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, including one that's uniquely suited to people who are feeling very unwell. And here we are again, and I'm just going to put some of this text back up on the screen as well. So we're at the point in the week, Friday at 3:35 or almost 3:35, and it's time for something for the weekend where we recommend those virtual activities that you can do without leaving your home, but travel all over the world and do all sorts of things in the process. Julie, would you like to give us an event to start with?
Well, I thought I'd be too tired after sort of trekking across the top of the Preseli Hills to do much. So I've identified the Lego Batman movie, which is on ITV2 tomorrow at 20 to 5, and I'm really looking forward to that.
And I think going back to my Doctor Who theme, they've been playing on W. Either is it Saturday or Sunday? You kind of get a box set and you just get rolling Doctor Who. I don't know, Josh, whether you've been watching any of that and can remind us which day it is.
I haven't, but I know that the majority of Doctor Who, um, or at least the newer Doctor Who from when they restarted it, is both on BBC iPlayer and I believe Netflix.
Yeah, so if you've got digital TV, there's all
Yes,
sorts of Doctor Who out there.
and you get to skip all the adverts as well if you do it that way, which is always a bonus.
Yes, that is also true. What have you got for us for the weekend, Josh?
Um, well, it's a digital thing as well, but for anyone that has Amazon Prime, there is a new series that came out last week, called Alex Rider, which is it's actually based on a series of young adult um, spy books
Yeah, I
by
know
Anthony
what it
Horowitz,
is.
which I read religiously as a kid growing up. I absolutely loved them, and they made a really naff film a few years ago. But they've just released a new TV series that's actually really really good. Um,
See,
it's slightly grown up. Sorry, Drew, what was that?
I told you I wanted to see that, and she said, "Oh, I'm not sure about that at all." Thank you, Josh, because we'll be.
Yes, it's
Yes,
excellent.
it's really, really, it is really very good. You know, it is based on a children's book. I think you can definitely get some enjoyment as an adult. Um, and then the other thing would be kind of similar to the joining from home. Um, I've been continuing to try and teach myself how to draw. So I'm going to be doing some more of that over the weekend. Um, and I've just been Googling how to draw X. Um, that in being you can put whatever you want, not just the letter. I've got the letter down. I can do that one. But yeah, there's literally millions of results on Google for how to draw pretty much anything and anything you can think of, whether that's kind of text based information or videos or anything.
I
So
think
yeah, if you
yeah, that's so helpful. We saw on Monday's show, and it's also in the highlights page, how Josh had drawn and then coloured. And I still couldn't remember the name of the game's character. So tell me the character that you drew.
I drew Goku from Dragon Ball Z, and then I drew another one this week as well, which I've got if anyone wants to see it. There we go. Which is another character from the same show, but again, yeah, that was just following kind of simple instructions online.
We had an artist whose name, of course, escapes me at the moment, but a locally based artist who does a lot of portraits. And what he does is he does street portraits. He drives around the borough on his bike and then he goes home and draws people. And a few years ago, we did an exhibition of his portraits at the Hub, which was a community centre in Canning Town before it unfortunately was closed by the council, of which we will move swiftly on from. But he came into the Friday art group and did a really interesting session around drawing. And one of the things he said is that you can't say you can't draw until you've drawn every day for a year. I think that's a really important thing, that it is about learning. It isn't about saying, oh, I can't do this because I've always been rubbish at it. On the other hand, I do my own drawing, I never really enjoy at all. And one of the things that I've realized is that it's actually part of my impairment that you're not quite sure where your body is in space, and therefore what you think you're drawing is the wrong shape, if that makes sense. So
that
what
that will make it harder to do it.
but I still do draw, and I think this is a really good opportunity to talk about, to just flag up, and again, we'll put it on the links. Every year in the UK, there is a national drawing prize, which is this year an international drawing prize. For the last 2 years, it used to be known as the Jerwood Drawing Prize, but it is now the Trinity Boy. Is it Trinity Boy Wolf or just the Trinity Drawing Prize? I think it's Trinity Boy Wolf. Trinity Boy Wolf is a wonderful arts quarter, which is very, very local to us, just over the River Lee, so officially in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. I have to say, Julie has her studio there, and Together 2012 have our storage unit there, so we are a bit biased. But it's a wonderful space. It belongs to Trinity House, who operate all of Britain's lighthouses. And what it has is London's only lighthouse, because, of course, you have to train people to operate a lighthouse. So there's a lighthouse still there. There's some lightships which have been converted. And then there's all of the old buildings, the electricians' workshops, the rope makers, and so on, are all now used as studios. There's a variety of arts organisations there. So they've got a selection of prizes. There's a student prize. There's, from what I recall, a prize for older people. There's a technical drawing prize. The entry, I'm not sure if it's the end of June, but it's June anyway. We will put the link into the highlights page. But I would really encourage anybody who likes to draw to enter that prize. And something we really noticed at the private view last year, or was it this year? I mean, it's
Last year.
yes, but not so long ago, but in a very different world, is that we kind of tend to think of drawing as something you do with a pencil, but actually, lots of things that I would have called a painting were there in the drawing exhibition. There was embroidery. It was really a kind of a reminder that drawing can be an awful lot more than just a piece of paper and a pen. But on the other hand, you can do some great things with a piece of paper and a pen. What have you got for us this weekend, Robin?
Well, firstly, the only things I can do with a piece of paper and a pen is words. I'm not allowed to pick up a home decorating paintbrush for fear of um, ruining whatever it is. Uh, um, I actually found loads of things. I'm going to start with one actually that I'm going to look at a lot more deeply this weekend and hope perhaps get back to talking about in the next week or two. But Tracy, as in our production office viewing assistant, um, showed me something that had come up on her Facebook, and it was a collection of images from 1918, 1919, I guess, around Spanish flu.
Brilliant.
And all of the pictures of what people were doing, the instructions from the government on how to do it, what was open. And it needs a bit more looking at to kind of get a broader picture. But it's like they haven't learnt much, really, since then. Certainly not in this country, and the death rate that we seem to have. On a lighter note, I've found actually an almost infinite list of things to do. Again, I will provide the link after today, but it's literally something called list.co.uk. You're smiling, I guess you know it.
No, no,
Um,
I don't. I just like the idea of it. I like the idea of an infinite list.
Oh yeah, I mean it's well, it's got 40 pages on at the moment, and the major, and it's just many different things, and where and a lot of these people are now obviously wanting to do online events. So anything from live bits of music by well-known artists, um, uh, listenings with what's his name from the Charlatans? Doesn't matter. Tim Burgess from the Charlatans, listening to a favorite album and conversing over it, like live on Twitter or through Twitter feeds. The Royal Ballet, uh, and I think Josh mentioned Andrew Lloyd Webber, but the really useful theatre company, is it? Are releasing a show a week at the moment online, so it's huge. I mean, and I could spend probably the next 6 hours going through the list in front of me. Forgive me for looking away, but I've got it on another screen of stuff there. And just but one interesting thing that just came up. Was something called Para Pride. Um, and obviously, with our, it being Pride Month and the links with regard, again, they claim it suggests that they're a very proactive disability pride organisation in London. And again, if that's interest to anyone and what kind of stuff they're getting up to, that's within the list. But if you want that, I'll give you the separate link as well. It's on Facebook, Para Pride.
Can I just come in here about the Spanish flu? An interesting fact about the Spanish flu is that it was a pandemic very similar to the coronavirus, but because it happened just after during it started off during the First World War, there were all sorts of information restrictions, and sort of people weren't allowed um, to show any weakness within any particular country, etc., etc. The only people who were able to report the flu epidemic as it was were in Spain, so that's how it became the Spanish flu. It was a
Okay.
pandemic; it was all over the world, but nobody else was allowed to report on it, and they've been labelled with the name ever since.
Yeah, there's just so many parallels. And in fact, you were reading, if to go back to that old fashioned, not only an old fashioned book, but of course, every single book that is out of copyright is available free online through the Gutenberg project. But what were you reading about the plague? Who's.
I was reading The Plague Year by Daniel Defoe. It's fascinating. There was a whole bit at the beginning of the plague when they had to get out of London initially, but they had to have a special permit to leave London, and they knew if they stayed in London they were going to most likely die because there was very little treatment. If there were, in fact, there was no treatment. Let's face it. But there's sort of like the desperate need to get out of London. I thought I could really identify with what's happening all over the country.
And yet today you just have to plead exceptional circumstances. I don't think we've progressed very far.
You
So
just have to test your eyesight. That's what you need to do.
that's right.
You
That's
can drive wherever you want.
moving swiftly to New
Sorry.
Heritage Month. No, I know exactly what you mean. So this weekend for Newham Heritage Month, there's going to be a very interesting live talk at 1 o'clock tomorrow with local historians Peter Williams and Mark Gorman. And that's on the history of Forest Gate. I'm going to catch that if I can. I'm assuming the recording will be on the website, which is newhamheritagemonth.org. Again, we'll put the link in. But Forest Gate is exactly what it says on the tin. It was the gate to Epping Forest. Epping Forest effectively came all the way down to almost where I am, and where I am was Plaistow Marshes down to the river. So I am just fascinated to know more about the history of Forest Gate. It's an odd area now. Some bits are quite posh. It's got lots of very big houses, so lots of those houses have been converted. Anything else? And of course, our associate wheelchair folk dance company dances at Durning Hall in Forest Gate, and we love the fact that it's so close to Epping Forest. On Sunday, they're going to be celebrating Bushra Nazir CBE, and she was the first woman Muslim head teacher of a state secondary school in the UK. So that information, I believe they, if it's on video and other information, they release it at midnight the night before. So that will be up from midnight on Saturday. And then on Monday morning at 11 o'clock, we have a live Zoom crafting workshop led by our very own youth development worker, Hazel Brill. There are plenty of places. It's a really interesting memory box activity, and it involves taking any size and any type of recycled container, decorating it, and putting in things that remind you of your life, your home, your memories. It's a lovely project. It's very accessible, very inclusive. So, all of the details of how to do that will be on our website under the highlights page, but also on newhamheritagemonth.org. And indeed, there's lots and lots of other things coming up. Tuesday, for example, there's going to be a whole event around Newham's first ever Chinese restaurant, which was probably about 100 years ago. But I'm certainly, as a great fan of Chinese food, looking forward to that one. Yeah, there's just a range of things, and in terms of what we were flagging up on Wednesday, the Tony Cheeseman Foundation. Tony Cheeseman was a musician, and Iroko Theatre's Nigerian talking drums. Those videos are now up on the website. So if whether or not you live in Newham, if you'd like to find out about more where we're based, we were the main London 2012 host borough. We also have some rather less attractive statistics, but it's a wonderful place to live. It's a great community, and we're really pleased that Newham Heritage Month has managed to come back just a month after it was first planned entirely virtual with the theme of home. Has anybody got anything else they would like to add in terms of going out doing something for this weekend?
I don't think so.
No, no, I'll be honest. What I was going to say, which is not about it, was actually about going out just a couple of years ago when I was at school. It seems
Few
really
years ago.
bizarre, really, that they used to do it. We used to do a school trip on a weekend to Epping Forest,
Oh, wow.
from the leafy suburbs of Surrey to Epping Forest, and there was this massive outdoor Lido. I don't know if that's still there, but it was amazing.
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. But again, it's a big area and it's a very interesting
we
place.
can track it down.
I'm just going to flag up a couple of things that I've picked up from the Guardian's recommendations this weekend. And in particular, there's a podcast called Science Weekly. And apparently, scientists answer your questions. They can answer anybody's questions. So, recent queries have included the effect of vitamin D, which has been quite a big concern. Is it that people of colour are more likely to be vitamin D deficient over the cold British winters? Talking about herd immunity. And then they say if you're sick of hearing about the pandemic, there are also episodes on topics like why dogs become more rebellious during puberty. I actually would have thought that's just like humans, it's
Yeah.
hormones. I'm not sure
Mm.
I'd have to listen to a podcast for all of that. There is also a podcast called 1619, which has been released by the New York Times' 2019 project. And that's marking 400 years since enslaved Africans arrived in North America. And it's a 6-part podcast, and it says it delves into the traumatic and enduring legacy for Black Americans. It's a prescient reminder of the insidious beginnings of racism. And in terms of the huge amount of work that I think all of us need to do to educate ourselves, that looks like a really good place to start. So that's 1619, the New York Times.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about podcasts, which I hadn't even kind of thought about to mention, which is remiss of me because I love a good podcast. Um, on the theme of kind of science things, there's a podcast called The Infinite Monkey Cage, which is a Radio 4 show that is hosted by Robin Ince and Brian Cox. And then they have a panel of, it's normally kind of 3 experts and a comedian. And they cover everything from the life and death of strawberries through to kind of quantum physics. And there's a whole kind of back catalogue of things to listen to. But yeah, they're kind of quite interesting and quite funny. So if you are looking for a science one to go, if Drew's piqued your interest with that one, if you want to follow on with Monkey Cage, that's another really good science podcast.
I think people often think that science is really difficult, but actually it's much more straightforward than people think. And when we're being told to listen to the scientists and there's so many people with different opinions, I think it's good for all of us to do a bit of educating so we can ask the right questions and not to just be sitting there being told something. I mean, I liked your science experiment from last week, Josh, but I still don't have a link from it. And it was about putting Smarties into the middle of a plate and tipping water on them and watching the dye run out. Julie is obsessed with Smarties. It's safe to say she's a Smartie addict. I shouldn't have got her so many Smarties when she was having her operation and told her they were magic pills, but I would still love to do the Smarties science experiment if we can put the link up later.
I will send you a link to a YouTube video that shows you how to do it. And I also, Mum did one, our production officer, Tracy, did one for something else. So I'll send that video over to you, Drew. And maybe we can talk about that next week as well.
Fantastic. So, coming up next week on Monday, we have special guest Andy Green, and Andy is going to talk to us about the very first Wild Festival. This is a festival that's coming up in July. He's going to tell us lots more about it, but it's a virtual festival, but is still going to include extreme wheelchair sport, which so I'm fascinated to hear more about that. We'll be still talking about Pride Month and Newham Heritage Month. On Wednesday, we have our writer in residence, Penny Pepperback, and we will be talking about all things poetry. We will also be talking virtual sport and gaming. We'd love to see your artwork, your videos, your poems, your stories. They can be activities that you've taken from our Join In From Home program on the website, or they can be about completely different things. We would just love to see them and share them with our viewers. If you're doing something at the moment, or you're planning an arts project, you're doing a podcast, you're making some music, again, please let us know. We'd love to have you as a guest. But we're going to say goodbye now from London. We're going to hand over to the West Midlands to say goodbye, and then Robin, as usual, on a Friday, will play us out with a song. So it's goodbye from us.
Bye bye.
It's goodbye from me.
And it'll be hello from me in a minute when I get my guitar.
I hope you enjoyed my Star Wars trousers.
We didn't see your Star Wars trousers.
Oh, you should have done. Great.
Okay. So, hi, unlockers. I seem to be a little bit on one side of the screen, but it's where my mic is. So forgive me, and I can nearly see now. Okay, this is a song called We Are Children. It was written many years ago, in fact, but I think it's incredibly relevant when we consider ourselves all as children of the world. We are children of the world, and we just want to live together. We are children of the world, and we just love to love each other. It's not important, there is no blame about how we walk or play our games, or see or hear or spell our names. What is right is you love us all the same. What is right is you love us all the same. There are people who don't understand, but we know better, and we can live hand in hand, in hand in hand. We are children of the world, and we just love to live together. We are children of the world, and we just love to love each other. It's not important, there is no blame about how we walk or play our games, or see or hear or spell our names. What is right is you love us all the same. What is right is you love us all the same. What is right is you love us all the same. What is right is you love us all the same. There are people who don't understand, but we know better. 'Cause we can live hand in hand in hand. Oh, we know better. Have a great weekend. Hope you can learn to play the guitar just a tiny bit better than me. Bye, guys.